Well, hello my friends, and happy Sunday to you. So today I needed some good soul journal process today. Life has felt heavy, and I went to my favorite magazine, Bella Grace, and looked for some images that would inspire me. And I thought about what I was needing. I needed to feel light. I needed to just let things go. And where do I do that? I do that in my journal. So I pulled some images from my magazine, and I pulled a couple of sheets that had just words and quotes, and I figured that had really good meaning to me, and I figured I could pull from that. And then my image, she felt like an angel, and I thought, that's what I need, a little light. And so I grabbed a bunch of vintage papers in my stash. I didn't know what I was going to use or need, but I just grabbed a bunch that felt comfortable, cozy, safe, I guess, maybe. So I grabbed all of those, and I have all of my papers selected. Now, I wasn't sure what stencils I would use, so I pulled a few, but I actually ended up using all of these, and they worked perfectly. These stencils will be on sale this week, if you're interested in them. So I've got my papers, I've got my stencils ready to go. I will use my matte medium to put my papers down, and I do use some matte gel for a couple of spots, but mainly my matte medium. And I will spray the back of my papers, most of them anyway, to make them go flat. I didn't start out spraying them. Really what I tried to do was just put them down, but they were wrinkling, and I wanted to have a little bit of a flatter surface. So as I'm selecting my papers, I'm looking for interesting patterns and different types of papers, values of papers. So some lighter, some darker. And really, honestly, what I was looking for was what made me happy. And that's the place, that's the thing for our journals, is to find the things that we absolutely love and use them here. This is our safety zone. And that's what it felt like today. And the only thing that I'm thinking about as I'm putting these down is breaking up the papers. So to not have too many papers that are the same in one area. So like those two kind of sienna colored floral papers, that's too close together, so I'll move those around. I've kind of got all of them laid out to how I think that they're gonna go. Everything's always up for change, at least with me. And I'm gonna just put my papers down with some fluid matte medium. You can see I'm noticing now that the papers are starting to wrinkle, and that's why I started watering my paper, watering the back of the paper. It just helps them go flat. It also helps to, like because I've got so many things in my journal, I've got this little bit of a ledge in my, where it folds, and it helps the papers become really soft and subtle, and helps them go flat. So I had some vintage wallpapers in greens that are perfect for the grassy area. Making sure I got everything covered, and I didn't even dry this. I just patted it dry with my towel, and then I grabbed my angel, I'm calling her an angel, sprayed her with some water and put her down. And typically what I do is I will prepare the background first, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted. So I needed to go with the next right step for me. And the next right step was working on her and getting some vision of where I wanted to go. And that's what I did. And that's what we, when we show up to create, there's not a giant plan a lot of the time. And that's the joy of it. And that's the purpose for our journals. So I put my butterfly wings down and needed something in the middle. And I thought the heart was perfect because I feel like I'm leaving my heart on the page. I think I leave my heart on the page every time I journal when I'm needing space or comfort. So I put the heart in the middle of the butterfly wings, used some white gesso to create her dress. And I did it real messily. I'm using a 1/4 inch angle brush. I did it real messily and used the smaller brush because it'll look like folds in her dress. And then also used gesso for her bow. And these are just initial layers. I'll go back over them, but it felt good. So now I've got a little bit of its, these are custom mix colors that I have added gesso to. So this is kind of a dark teal with a little bit of gesso in it, and it looks more blue here on the page than teal. And I needed to kind of start separating her from the background so I could see her. So I could see if she needed something, what the details would be for her. And again, this felt like the next right step. And her sleeves, they're kind of puffy. And I was going to go around them, but they felt like they were disappearing. So I went ahead and went over them. I'll accent them a little bit more when we get there. But for now, I just covered them over to make them a little bit lighter. Taking some, this is kind of another custom mix. It's kind of, you could use, it's a mix like olive green with a little bit of cad blue in it, tiny bit of cad blue, because this green has a blue undertone. And I'm just really highlighting my areas here, giving them a little bit of dimension, helping me again. It's separating things so I can see what I might need or want for the sections. And I had this wonderful, it was in the magazine, it felt perfect. Thinking about light and feeling light and needing light, it just felt like the right thing. So I put that down with my matte gel because it's really heavy. And again, typically I would have the background in before I put something like this in, but I didn't, this wasn't planned. I grabbed some papers, turned on the camera, and went to town. And so I'm going around my pieces, which is, it looks beautiful. It turned out wonderful. So go with your heart. When you need to create, don't think about the rules. Think about being present and walking through whatever you need to walk through as you're creating. The color that I'm using for the sky is raw sienna with a little bit of gesso. Blue didn't seem to feel right. I wanted it to feel soft and thoughtful, and this is the color that came out. Now I did add a little bit of, this is a custom color again. It's like a fleshy pink. It's so pretty, but it's a perfect accent to the sienna to kind of soften it a little bit. Adding a little bit of watered down gesso in there to resemble some of that sky, or some of that clouds, I should say. And there are certain areas that I want to push back, and there are certain areas that I want to stay focused. And I see that better each time I put a layer down. So I'm taking a little bit of that blue that I initially put around her at the start and putting that in just for some touch of sky look. Every layer builds on the next, and it always adds interest. So especially if they're light and transparent. So I gathered up a few additional flowers to put down so that I could put them down in specific spots. Cut those out. These are vintage florals. And then I had this little heart on a scrap piece of paper in my stash, and I thought it was perfect for the center. Now I've got some of that raw sienna mixture with a little bit of gesso, and I'm coming back around the flowers now to, I call carve out those flowers and get rid of that white background and have them just kind of melt into the page. And I extend that color out with my finger and rubbing it with my finger or my brush to not have a hard line around the flowers. Plus it helps distinguish different areas. It gives us lights and darks and contrast in the page. The papers underneath are still showing through, but they're pushed back, and I'm able to tell more of the story. I'm using that same color to come around some of the main flowers that I put down at the beginning to separate those and give them a little bit of definition. I am taking that color too all the way to the top, and I'll bring it down too, just for balance. And now that, I'm getting this color down, every step leads you to the next step. I felt like she needed to be separated a little bit more from the background, so I'll use that same color that I'm using for the flowers to separate my sweet angel. Using a little bit of the green that I used for the grasses to kind of get rid of my white highlights around my flowers at the bottom. Coming back in now to re-emphasize her gown, her dress, making it more white, keeping those lines happening though so that it looks like the folds of her dress. And now I'm bringing back in the sleeves. And and putting in her hands with a little bit of that kind of pinky flesh color. Now I want to address, I want to put some flowers in her hair. And I start with some magenta. Got a little bit of that green that I've been using for the leaves. I've got a mixture of cad orange and white for these flowers. And then magenta with a little bit of white gesso to kind of really emphasize the heart, bring it alive a little bit. Little bit of green gold to add some variation of color at the bottom. It needed just a little bit of something. It was feeling a little blah at this point. Of course, I'm going to add a whole bunch of stuff to it, but you always take the next right step. And that's what felt right. It needed a little bit of light at the bottom. Now I'm going to bring in my stenciling. And a lot of times I use several different colors to create, my stencils because it gives it variety. So I've got cad orange and gesso. I'll go back and forth between the two because it gives some variation. This is Prism Violet for these stencils. And yes, I have stenciled even the stems in violet because I'm going to go back over it like I am now with some green, but I'll also come back over it with some charcoal pencil. Using raw umber to stencil out these branches. I just love these branches. And then some white for some stars and some hearts in the sky because it felt right. It made me happy. And that's what our journals are for. I'm using a mixture of raw umber and black gesso for the bottom because I wanted it to be darker to add some contrast but not too much. Coming back in with my green to create some stems so that the flowers don't feel like they're floating in air, and a few leaves. I really wanted, so as I progressed through the page, I wanted to focus on light, feeling light, seeing light in the world, in our own family, just, what it meant for me. And so I really wanted to bring more white up to the top. And so I did it very messily because I wanted it to feel like, when the sun comes through the window and you get these streaks of light. It's kind of what I was thinking. And now it's time to bring the definition. I've got my General's charcoal pencil in extra soft. And I'm going to go around pretty much everything with my pencil and bring some definition. Now, as I was doing these flowers, I realized I usually always come back and add some paint to my stenciled images or soft pastels, because it just adds more character and depth to it. So I added a little bit of paint to these orange flowers. And they're still very wet, so I'm doing kind of a general outline of them until they dry a little bit more, and I can do some more shading on them. Bringing in the soft pastels to add that pop of contrast and interest. Adding a little soft pastel on the horizon line there with a little bit of water on my finger. They're always so pretty when you water them out. Adding some additional like hair line strokes on her hair. Adding the shading to the heart really brings it out. The shading really brings out so much. Adding just a few charcoal pencil marks on her dress to kind of accentuate the folds there. And then I wanted to kind of fill in some of the space with some flowers. Simple circles, prism violet, all the same colors that I've been using. Prism violet, magenta, cad orange, with a little bit of gesso. Just adding simple stems to my flowers and little leaves, little tiny leaves. Nothing fancy, but just kind of finishing them off. it's time for my quote that I just cut words that made sense to me. And I figured where the light was the perfect place for the quote. Beautiful light streaming from above. I'm going to put my final touches on, shade my edges, and add the final details, and we are almost done. I hope you find your light and feel light today if you are feeling heavy. And I hope you enjoyed the process and the project. And I'll see you next week.